We are live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. My name is Mark the Mayor. I'm your host. I'm with my partner in all things law enforcement. What's up, Bill Cannon?
I thought you forgot the name of the show for a second.
Did I say it? What did I say?
I don't know. You were like, oh, you hesitated for a second. I said, wait a minute.
You know what happened was when I take my glasses off, I stop thinking. I don't know what happens. Since I can't see anymore, my brain just stops working. I start focusing on the screen, and then before you know it, I forget what I was actually trying to say. Anyway, listen, enough about the fact that I can't read a copy. Our guest tonight, we have a special guest. It's an honor to have him. He served 36 years with the NYPD. He rose up to the rank of chief. He was the Patrol Borough Brooklyn South, Queens South, IAB, and he retired 6 years as the transit chief. Welcome, Joseph Fox.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I don't want to start out with a correction, but I'm actually 37 and a half years NYPD. But I say 38 and a half because I was a traffic agent for a year before I became a cop. So I consider that. And I say 41 because I consider myself just as involved trying to do what I can for these young cops as I was when I was working. So.
Chief, when you retired, how much time did you have on the books?
You know what? Not a lot, because I was a captain so long. I mean, I made captain with 10 years on. And was like, at the time, you just didn't take a lot of time, you know. And then I made 2-star pretty quickly, and you're not able to save a lot of time there. You don't make time anymore.
Right.
So yeah.
You must have been a pretty damn good test taker. You went from cop to captain in 10 years.
It wasn't me. It was the alignment of the tests. I mean, I got to take a sergeant's test with like a year and a half on the job, and I got promoted with 2 years and not 3 months, 2 months and 29 days.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was. There's rules now. There's now you can't get promoted until you have 5 years, and that wasn't in play then. So that gave me a good.
Almost the record, right? Who's got the record?
I don't know. I think if there's a record, and I say this, with all modesty, I think it's making 1 star. Because I did that with 16 years and 2-star with 17 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But no one's writing about that record. That's okay.
Didn't Fausto Pichardo became chief of patrol with less than 20 or no?
I think he was around, he was a little less than 20. He was.
That's pretty amazing too, right?
Yeah, it was. But anytime anyone makes the slightest big deal out of my rank, I always say I'm just a small fry in a McDonald's Happy Meal. But I'm one of the happiest fries in that Happy Meal. And jokes oftentimes have truth to them, and I really, there's not a day that goes by that multiple times I'm not saying, how did this happen to me?
Chief, there you are on the screen with all of that gold on your shoulder and your collar brass.
Yeah, that must have. And on that one, I had a speaking part, so you can see how much With the funny thing about if you can get a whole video of a press conference where I'm like not speaking, it begins. I mean, this is like mayors and commissioners, and it begins with me standing like this, completely attentive and stoic, and then 10 minutes into it, my eyes start going, and then every now and then you'll see me go like this and grab the phone, put it down. And then next thing you know, I'm saying hello to the reporters in the audience. I'm going like, and by the time 40 minutes goes by, I'm all over the place because it's hard for me to sit in one place at one time.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. If I'm at a comedy show performing, sometimes they come up with this stupid idea to have the comedian sit on stage and watch the other guy. I don't want to do that at all. No,
right
in the back. When it's my time to go, I'll go. Yeah. But I'm going to ask you a question. Rising to chief, that's a really powerful position. The average civilian doesn't. I don't think they could possibly understand what it's like. That's like being almost like a CEO of a company. What does it feel like to walk into any command unannounced? I mean, there's that phone call coming before you. We all know that. But what does that feel like when you walk in?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll give you one. When I was a new borough commander, I became the chief of Queens South, 2-star chief. And the 107 precinct, which is where our headquarters was, you walk in the back door from your parking spot, and then there's a big area, and then there's a desk, and then there's the elevator opposite the desk. So you walk in right near the elevator, and as soon as you walk in, everybody would yell attention. And I say these, and how you doing, everyone, and smile and talk, and they'd all still stand there. And I'm waiting for this elevator. It was the longest elevator in the world because I felt so uncomfortable. But it was respect, and I know that.
Yeah.
I get in that elevator, and sometimes I'd look down and say, am I not wearing pants or something? Like, why are they all staring at me? But it reminds me, if you ever see that some of the Austin Powers movies,
Yeah.
where Dr. Evil has his Fräulein, that German woman, and she shouts out, lower the tractor beam, and Dr. Evil would go like this and get scared. It was I never got used to, nor am I still used to, the big deal people make of the position, the title, and me. And it's like I said, as many times that I say, how did this happen to me?
You know what's got to be awkward when you're at work and you get so much respect when you're at that rank. When you walk into like a precinct or any office, like you mentioned, everybody stops, they stand up, they get an attention. And then you go home in your personal life. You're going out to dinner with your wife and kids. Nobody knows who you are. You got to wait in line at Red Lobster like everybody else, right? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and I enjoy when I'm not recognized, but I enjoy when I am. It's very, it's like I used to when I lived in Marine Park. I'm in Rockaway now. I used to jog in the park there, and throughout the years, every now and then, often I'd meet a cop and he'd say, "Chief, you still jogging?" And I say, "You live near?" And he said, "Yeah, I see you in the park." I said, "Why don't you say hello?" And he said, "I don't want to bother you." So I've come to learn that for any place I am, if one person says hello to me, probably 5 others around the job who knew me, and they give you that respectful distance. But I don't want the respectful distance. Anybody listening to this, I want you to say hi. I want to chat. I was a lot to handle for the people who drove me, because I'd see a cop, let's get out and talk to him, and they'd be going like this. We got a meeting. We got to get there. We got to get to headquarters. So,
I thought they were trying to indicate that this place is good, like it's OTA.
Well, there's something about that, When I was doing those visits, and we will again with Anna and Anthony and the line of duty families, the Thank You NYPD Facebook group to the commands last summer and fall, I would always, they would bring food for the whole command besides our words. And on the way out, I would always grab a couple of bagels, little baguettes. And in the 2 different huddles of cops, I'd say, "Guys, you know what never changes, even when you're retired?" And they look at me. "What's that, Chief?" "You still love the food." I said, "I can have breakfast tomorrow from a restaurant, but I'm going to be sitting on my terrace with this bagel. It's going to be a day old."
That's right. Chief, it was funny, like when you say the reverence of, you walk into a precinct, and it is, I think, anyone above the rank of inspector, they have to yell attention, right?
Yes, the inspector or above.
I remember when I was teaching CIC and I was a sergeant, and there was all these recruits there. And one of my friends taught one of the recruit classes, and she goes, "Why don't you come in and say hello?" So I walked in and they all sprung to attention. I laughed so hard, I almost needed oxygen. I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah.
Are they doing that for me?
It's a humbling feeling. Speaking of the police academy and recruits, for 5 or 6 years, monthly, me and a team did 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We did the seminars. We did seminars, based on the Covey book. So I used to love hanging out in the cafeteria and interacting with the rookies and all people being trained. So there was one time where there was a table with about 9 of them. Like 2nd month into the academy. I said, "Hey, is this seat taken?" And they're like, "Yes, sir." I mean, "No, sir." So I sit down and I ate with them. And I loved it. I'm telling them stories. I'm asking where they come from. And the funny thing is, when I was done, I said, "Okay, guys, take care." I got up. And as soon as I turned around, I saw them all running out of the cafeteria because they were probably late for class when I joined them. Their meal was probably up. And they weren't going to get up while I was sitting there. So they probably all got in trouble to the different classes they went back to because I was sitting there telling them.
Yeah, Chief Fox made me sit there and talk to him.
And the instructor says, "Yeah, right."
Chief, in your 37 years, 39 years, what was your favorite place to work?
I've been asked this before, and there is not a favorite because every place I worked was better than the one before. And every place I worked, I thought I didn't want to work anywhere else. When I was the chief of Brooklyn South, I lived my first 5 or 6 years petrified, anxious, and worried about getting promoted because I didn't want to leave. I loved it so much. And a friend of mine, Pete Tuffy, a guy I was supposed to be mentoring as a precinct commander, became my mentor. And he said to me around year 5 or 6, it's not a matter of if you leave, it's a matter of when. So why stress over it? And at that moment, my life got better in many ways. So I never wanted to go to the next spot. When I was a 7-1 CO, I didn't want to leave there. And everywhere I went, I said, wow, this is great. This is as good as the other place. And maybe I can do even more here.
That's a testament right there.
Yeah. And that includes police officer. I took the test. My partner, Mike Collins, he was going to one school and I was going to another. And it was like unspoken competition. We both confessed to each other 20 years later that neither of us had any desire to become a sergeant. But because the other one was studying, we didn't want to be outdone. So the both of us wound up becoming chiefs. And that first step we only did because we didn't want the other guy to get ahead of each other.
Oh, wow. That's good. That's great to have that.
Yeah.
There you are, Chief, giving a speech there. I don't know if with Commissioner Bratton there. You remember that day?
Not that day, because it was quite collaborative with him. We would all have the turn at the mic, and oftentimes without warning, just throw it to us, and that was good experience. So it was probably something about transit, transit crime, which I was very proud of. I used to love when I got grabbed, called on to speak, even if crime was up or there was a slashing, because whenever I did, I got to speak about the great hard working men and women of the Transit Bureau, the partnership with the MTA, and I loved it. We had one in 2015, Carmen Rivera, a 74-year-old woman, was randomly slashed from like almost ear to ear, and it was horrible. And that year, every time there was a slashing, even slashings, between two guys fighting, and one guy had a paper clip and cut the other, it was always headline news. So as a show of kind of like faith in the transit system, they decided to do the monthly crime briefing in the Transit Bureau. And that was really exciting because we had the mayor, we had the police commission, we had all the chiefs, we had all the reporters. And they put me up and I looked at all the reporters and I said, today is a great day. Welcome to the Transit Bureau, because today I get to speak about the hard-working young men and women of this Transit Bureau. And the reporters, they're kind of like smiling because it was like the pressure was on. Transit crime is up in transit. And I said what I believed, that they do a phenomenal job down there. And it's just one of the safest systems in the world.
Yeah, I got to tell you, you look sharp in that uniform. I mean, I swear to God, you were in phenomenal shape then. Everything is working there. You look like a superstar. Let me ask you a question though. What about what's going on now with transit? Like, I know you're probably paying a lot of attention to it. It probably means a lot to you. What do you see is going on there? What's happening?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because the first big news that people can't grasp and no one's writing about it, there's this narrative that ridership is down significantly and crime is down, but crime should be down even more because ridership's down. And that's not true. Crime could possibly, a good chance would have, if not for the great job that Kathy O'Reilly's doing and the rest of the men and women in the Transit Bureau. Because think about this, the ridership is down, but guess who is still on subways? People who commit crimes. They're still on subways. They're not driving Ubers, and they're not working from home on laptops. They're in the subways. So they have greater opportunities because there's less crowds. So that's ripe for crime increase. So the fact that crime is down it continues to be a tribute to what these young men and women are doing. They take it seriously. And you guys know, they take it seriously. I mean, you see the guests you have on, Sean Kelly. Thank you. I reconnected with him. I
love Sean Kelly. We were SBA delegates together. What a great guy.
I sat there with all of my years and experience watching him like I'm watching a movie. It was almost like, holy cow, I wish I could do what he did. And I felt that way because he did all his years. He did great things. And I did very little of those. I did things I'm proud of. But it just shows you how much there is to do in this job and how many ways there are to make a difference in the world.
Chief, I want to also follow up with that transit question. And I spoke the other day when Mark and I had Ed Mullins on, And we said one of the most significant things in regards to crime fighting that was taken away from the police was having jumping the turnstile be a misdemeanor theft of service. And when the police lost that, they also lost search incidental to lawful arrest, which is an automatic toss when someone is arrested for a crime. And I think that's a big blow to the transit police. What do you think?
It's a big blow. It's much more than bad policy. It's actually a disgrace, because it says that from the moment you walk into that gate to get into that station, it's okay to disregard rules. That's what it says. And here's the thing: that whole narrative that people love to buy into, that that we're criminalizing poverty. It's wrong. It's wrong. There's 70% of the people stopped for jumping a turnstile are given a tab, Transit Adjudication Bureau summons, and it's nothing. You walk away in 15 minutes. 70%. Who's not given a tab and who's taken to a district? Transit recidivists, people who repeatedly do crimes in subways, people with warrants, people with weapons on them. But that narrative that you're victimizing, that you're criminalizing poverty, everyone went with it, and now we're losing a very important. That when people are coming and going and they see someone being stopped by a cop for jumping a turnstile, look at the tone that sets. That makes people feel safe. When they're going through and paying with their MetroCard, they see that, they say, "Wow, okay, this is a safe system. Cops are in action."
I agree with you 100%.
I think that if you polled did a poll on the people that are arrested in the system and found out whether or not they in fact jumped the turnstile, you probably find it to be 90 to 100%.
Yeah, and here's the simple formula: not everyone who jumps a turnstile would commit a crime, but everyone who commits a crime will jump a turnstile. So it's a no-brainer that we have to be there to engage people who do that. It's just, and it's another thing is, I mean, just equally important, it's revenue. We're contracted. The Transit Bureau is there to support the MTA and the subway system, and fare evasion that costs them millions of dollars a year. That's part of it.
Yeah, I have a feeling like they were looking to make that money up with the congestion pricing that took a back seat because of the pandemic. But I would imagine that at some point they're gonna revisit it, and that's the idea.
Yeah, Mark, you're giving them a lot of credit. They think that's a plan. People just kept shouting that you're victimizing, that you're criminalizing poverty, and they shout it long enough until it sounds true, and the district attorneys followed suit. If you look at this last year, if you would have gotten a bunch of great minds together, the greatest of minds, and said, "Listen, go off on a retreat somewhere, and just as a practice run, see if you can come up with like 10 of the best ways to destroy a city." Those great minds couldn't have done what these elected officials have done in this last year.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Chief, you know who just joined us? Dr. Stephen Washgill. I know you were just on the show with him Saturday morning. He's one of my favorites,
Oh, man. I really enjoyed is not the word. It was a really important hour that we spent, about suicides. And Doctor, how are you? And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, he's great.
Shout out to Duty Ron for his $10 super chat. And why don't we take a moment here to say hello to all the people that have joined us. Like Bill mentioned, Dr. Steve Washgill. We got MC Otto, Mike Colon on, 12-step woman who has recently gotten dipped in butter. Thank you, 12-step woman. Kajak Images. Well said, Chief. The visual of seeing the stops definitely does set the tone in the transit system.
Thank you.
That is very, very true. Anytime that you see police officers taking action for something that is actually most people, the average person is annoyed by that infraction. They don't want to see it. That's when they feel safe. That's your job. That was our job.
Yeah. What I think happened in this last few years is there's not enough people who remember what it was like to walk around our city in the 80s and the early 90s.
I know, it's like they're asking for it. They want. It's like they're asking. They want to see what it was like.
Yeah.
because we're always so nostalgic about it.
Yeah, I want to see what it's like. Yeah.
You know, everyone's always talking about defund the police. You know what I'm saying? I said, when I first got on the job, I work in the defunded police department for the first 10 years of my job. Every card had a milk crate in it, to sit up. I mean, if cops are fat, that's why they break the seat. But you got the milk crate, you name it. I mean, I worked in a rat-infested, when I was in Manhattan Warrants. We were right behind the projects, right next to the compactor for the projects. I mean, you know, to get into the lunchroom, you have to bang a bat on the side of the door there 3 times so the rats would fly out of there. You know, so I worked in it. It's bring it on. You know,
yeah. You know, I called that back then and at least I came on in the 80s and apologist policing. You know, it was always assuming if a cop did something that was the media question, there was a presumption that it was wrong. And it was really, you know, when Rudy Giuliani came, that he almost always said the presumption is that the cop was right and we'll investigate. And if he tells us otherwise, but now the presumption now, you know, it's supposed to be, especially in this last year, you know, if there's suspected wrongdoing with a cop, there's an investigation. And then if the investigation is substantiated, then there's either criminal or administrative charges. But in 2020, it was all reversed. It was an elected official saying a half hour after he sees a video on Twitter that the cop is guilty, then arrest the cop. And then the trial, no investigation.
You know, that's the chief. That's a disturbing thing that city council members, politicians are deciding what police procedures should be when they have no idea about policing, period. We've had the great Maki Haberfeld from John Jay say how ridiculous that is that they never query academics about, is this proper police procedure? Is this not? When they were talking about responding to the riots in the summer, and they talked about some procedure that the police use called kettling. I'm sure you know what that is.
Actually,
it doesn't exist. Well, yeah, I mean, whatever the technique is that the police should be allowed to determine how to police. They shouldn't have to ask you how to do it. And if that works to separate 2 groups, that's part of the strategy they use.
On that particular night, they were warned repeatedly, that group. They did a lot of damage in the Bronx, not far from there, the night before. They were warned repeatedly, curfew. It was hours after the curfew that they ignored that they were arrested. There was weapons found. There was all kinds of, but the narrative doesn't work for our media and our elected these days. So they ignore it.
Yeah, the New York Times just wrote an article about how the police, the techniques they used over the summer were all, indicative of all people needing more training. I think these journalists need more training,
So let me guess. So the millions of dollars in damage in stores, the restaurants disrupted, the broken windows, the businesses that had to close up or hire extra security. I guess that's because the police sources didn't have the right training.
Right.
Well, I think it's because they never got to complete their agenda here. I think the idea was that we were going to become, I don't know, Portland or Minneapolis, and that was the idea, and it couldn't happen here. There was days of unrest. There was a lot of turmoil going on, but it didn't get the footing that it does there. It's not the permanent, cancer that it is over there.
Yeah, and it didn't because of the work of the NYPD. These young men and women that were vilified, and he still stood out there and protected the whole city from being burned. If we have to look back in history, and if I have to find one decision and one person that was the cause of all the violence and the destruction, 2020, it's that mayor in Minneapolis, Jacob Frey. When he said it's bricks and mortar, and he pulled the cops back that first night, that was a very loud message that everyone heard across the country. Imagine pulling back law enforcement in an American city and saying the next day it was only bricks and mortar. No, Jacob, it wasn't bricks and mortar. It was the line between chaos and disorder and crime and civilization and safety. You walked away from it.
Yeah. Chief, I want to ask you a tough question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but what's disturbing to me now is that these progressives get almost no pushback from the upper echelon of the NYPD. And they're basically told accept these police reforms or basically leave the job. And I think that in a different time, the top of the police department said, no, we're not doing that. But now they're told, if you don't do what we're telling you to do, leave.
Well, yeah. But I must say, though, pushback. I'm not in the room. I'm not in the meetings. I don't speak with Commissioner Shea. But I can tell you what I know about him. He's pushing back as much as he can. And there's what a number of people like me think. Imagine if he wasn't there. Imagine if he wasn't there, because I know enough about him that there's probably a lot of pushback.
Look, I know he was an excellent street cop, and I know he paid his dues on the street. But it just seems now they set these rules that make no sense whatsoever, and they're forced to accept them, and it's unbelievable.
But it's not just here. It's all over the country. It's this wokeness, and it's like I tell these young officers. The stock market has bad days and bad months. It always comes up. We'll get through this, but this is the Great Depression now. This may take a generation.
You know what? Since you brought it up, I want to ask you this question. What would you say to the young cops that are on the job right now, as far as how far should they go? When we were on the job, you could be, I'll just use the word cowboy. You know what I'm saying? You could be that street crime guy. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to make collars. You went out every day with that attitude. What would you say to the young cops on the job, as far as how far should they extend themselves?
I would say to them what I said in every one of those NYPD visits, and what I say to every one of them that I chat with in the street, and I talk with, which is regularly. It's be careful. You will be there when people need you. Nothing can stop you from that. I know that. You know that. Those gray areas that was not even a gray area, like breaking down a party that was part of policing, a disorderly party, and in the summer, happened less because their hands were so tied. When it's time to do that, be careful. Be more strategic. Be as strategic as you are. Try to consider yourself just graduating the academy yesterday, even if you have 8 years on. Be careful. Work with partners. Be strategic. Have people back you up. Don't run right in, because the authority, the respect that a cop got, even from criminals, a couple of years ago, well, actually more than a couple of years ago, because this has been degenerating since 2014. But the respect that cops got is just not there. And the resistance is there. But the main thing I tell them is people can take away their gratitude, they can take away their respect, they can vilify them, individuals, groups, politicians, but no one can take why they do away from them. No one can take the mission, and they have to remember that. They have to be true to that. And if they forget it, then they have to recalibrate themselves, and they go to their locker and they get a letter from the family of a 94-year-old woman, and they were the first at the home when she passed away. And in that letter, someone wrote that they'll never forget them. Or the 19-year-old kid that had his first car accident, he was so upset, and you calmed him down. And if that doesn't work, go to the memorial in your precinct wall, because every precinct has one of cops who have died in line of duty. And remember that we wear that uniform for them as well.
Well said, Chief. I just want to shout out to some of our fans here. Duty Ron, thank you for the $10 super chat. Some others people really helping us out here. Maximo Morel, thank you for the $24.99 super chat, and for the $19.99 super chat. You must love us. Thank you so much. And Ryan Investigative Group for the $5. Michael Marcucciuli, thank you for the $5 super chat. You would think we're living large, but not really. We're cops, But I always consider, Chief, I used to love when they always said to you, you got to be willing to take chances, And I was. I mean, I did 6.5 years in anti-crime. I wound up in homicide, all that stuff. But how do you say that to a cop today? You got to be willing to take chances, because the job that has our back may not have their back today.
Yeah. You have to be very strategic, very careful. And even before this last couple of years, they were getting that because of the body cameras, the body cams. So they were all, cops are resourceful people. You know that. We figure things out. So there, I mean, I've had I've had a conversation. This happened a couple of months ago, and I think they must have been coming in to check a restaurant, and I start chatting with the cop. Hey guys, and the partner goes like this, points to the camera to let me know it's rolling, right? So they you know they know how to be careful, and it's more challenging now, but they'll do it. But I saw an auxiliary, right? And his I can't remember his first name. It was at a funeral about a month ago, and I went over him. He was with 2 police officers in the 6-1 precinct. He was a Russian kid, and he gave me this like real military salute, chief. And I was in a suit, of course. And I said to him, I said, so what do you want to do? What are you going to do after this? He says, NYPD, sir. The job is not dead. And I said, exactly. I kind of like hit him in the chest. I says, great to hear. So the guys like us and gals like us are saying, no one's going to want this job. But guess what? They do.
There's always crazy people out there.
Yeah, like us. But
well,
thank God.
About auxiliary, I always said that, you know what, when they had that show, Extreme Sports. You remember that? They had the on ESPN, Extreme Sports. I said, you want to do an extreme sport, you should be an auxiliary cop for the NYPD. They put you in a police uniform, the same exact uniform. The shield's different, but who bothers looking at the shield? And then they put you in the most dangerous place in New York City without a gun. Go get him.
Yeah. Hey, two auxiliary cops
were
killed in the 9th precinct.
I remember that. I was down there that night. I was actually performing comedy at the Boston Comedy Club that night.
And one of the cops who fired was Arthur Leahy. He was a relatively young new cop in the 6th precinct, and he was Jimmy Leahy's brother. Jimmy was one of the 23 who died in the towers, and Arthur was inspired by his brother's passing and sacrifice to become an NYPD cop.
Amazing. Chief, I'm going to share something on the screen here.
Oh,
and it was one of the highlights of your career here.
That was a good day. That was a good day. Yeah, there's my daughter on the right. And see, even here, they're telling me, come on, you got to go. That's what it was like with the drivers. I would have stayed there all day.
You didn't want to leave, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's
your granddaughter.
That's Leah. That's Leah. She's going to be 6 now. If I didn't hold her, I probably would still be there talking about the cops. It's actually one of the reasons I picked her up. But it was really nice. That's under the scaffolds. It'll probably be there for another 20 years. Yeah, that's nice.
Let's get to the bagpipes.
Yeah, there they are. Yeah, Todd Maisel took this video. It was great job. She loved it, Leah. She loved that little flower. And here's my son's going to drive me. That's
fantastic.
Yeah. We drove about 3 blocks, and then we all met in different cars. Then there he goes. Yeah, that's Todd Maisel asking if he's ever driven a Chief before.
Isn't that great? That's fantastic. Chief, my walkout consisted of me stumbling out of Coogan's.
Is that the place up at Manhattan North?
Yes, Washington Heights. It closed during the pandemic.
It closed. What nice people. We used to have Vinnie Coogan, my XO.
Oh my God. Vinnie Coogan was my lieutenant in the 2-4 squad. I love Vinnie Coogan.
Yeah, he's a great man. And he used to bring us into that place to have our dinners. I used to suspect that,
Chief, there he is.
There he is.
I knew you were going to ask about him, so I put him I put him in the show.
That's actually one of the NYPD, thank you, NYPD visits. There I am back, and Vinny came out, and there's Kathy O'Reilly. And Kathy O'Reilly was the chief of Manhattan North, and she was not the chief of transit, and she came down to the system to visit, and which says a lot about her.
100%. She got some great people there. Some really great people.
I think in that photo, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I think it's Steve Murillo, something like that.
Steve Murillo.
Positive work for the job regarding suicide awareness, and he's always on Facebook Live. Yeah, sharing his knowledge with that, and looking out for his brothers and sisters in blue. So that's an interesting photo.
I cherish my connection with Steve because he took a couple of lumps unfairly on the job, and just kept plugging away. And I know I'm going to see him cross that stage again and get promoted again.
Hey,
Chief, you seem almost priestly. Maybe you're like too good. I don't know.
One time when I got to Brooklyn South, I had my one-on-ones with the COs, and one CO I was friendly with because I worked with her before, and I had one of the one-on-ones with one of her peers, and she called me up, said, "Yeah, Janine said you missed your calling. You should have been a priest."
It's true.
Yeah,
you have that priestly sort of look,
Well, thank you. I just, I was chatting with the guy. If you see on Facebook, one of my favorite places, I go to Jamaica Bay. I was there with my girlfriend recently, and I happened to meet a guy. His name is Don. I forget his last name, but he's an environmental activist. I asked him if he's ever been there. He said about 51 years. He was the head of parks that maintain that place, and it's over in Jamaica Bay Nature Refuge. So we're chatting, and I said something to him about a poem I wrote there, and he said, "You were NYPD?" I says, "Yeah, what do you mean?" He says, "I've never seen one. You write poetry, you're an environmentalist." I says, "A friend of mine told me in 2009 that I'm an enigma." And I kept saying to her, every time she'd say that, Nancy, I'd say, "Could you tell me what that word means again?"
I feel the same way. I was studying acting. I used to read Shakespeare in the van with my partners, and they were like, can you imagine like a group of cops sitting in the van, like reciting Shakespeare?
I do poetry, photography, environmentalist, but I'd never done Shakespeare, so you got me there, Mark.
There you go. You were Carla there.
Carla.
Sweatshirts. Carla was on our show. Those are the sweatshirts for the K9.
I just ordered a sweatshirt, Mark, and I promised as soon as I get it, I'm going to wear it on our next show.
I want one too, man. I'm going to order one too.
I was so proud of her. I know her since I became chief of transit. First of all, when I came home the second day after being told to retire, there was an edible arrangement, fruit basket in front of my door, and it was from her. And the only tear I shed back then was then. I was so touched that a woman whose father was taken from her when she was 20 days old, and there's a fruit basket in front of my door. And I sat there that night at this table, and I remember shouting out. It was about 7 p.m. I was about to have my burger, and I shouted out, in this apartment, you can hear it, "I'm so effing lucky." And I caught myself, and I wrote about it. It's still on my calendar because I'm going to write about it someday, and it's the power of perspective. But
before I forget, Shane Rogers says hi.
Oh, hey, how are you?
I worked with Shane over at the police academy. We're in CIT. I was one of the actors for CIT.
Shane's a good man, and he's done a lot, and he's he was very wonderful to me. Like I said, I was in the academy every month, a couple of days. But that speech Carla made that day in the 7-2, wow, that was amazing. I'm watching her, and I grabbed her because I know what she does. I said, "Carla, do you do public speaking in that job?" And she says, "No." I says, "You're kidding me." I mean, she was amazing. If anybody hasn't seen it, it got a lot of views. It got about close to 30,000 views on my Facebook account alone. But really, she really nailed it.
She's a sweetheart, but I sense that she's tough. She's got to, she's had to become tough.
You know who knows she's tough? The school district.
Yeah, good.
Ask them if Carla's tough.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
This cancel culture needs to take a left hook,
They poked the bear. They poked the bear, man. That was a big mistake.
Yeah. Ask them if Carla's tough.
Poke the bear, see what they can get away with.
It was all fun and games for them with their wokeness until they did. Yeah. Until they did that not only to her dad's memory. Oh, Sandy.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Sandy Lou. I can't believe seeing this woman. Every time I speak with her or text with her, I always say, "I'm so proud of you and I love you." Because I was in the hospital, I was in Woodhall, and I saw her that day, and I saw her the months after. And to see her, I mean, the activism that she brings to the NYPD and little Angelina, that was beautiful. Mary Murphy did a wonderful job that night.
And Chief, you're referring to her husband killed in the line of duty, Wenjen Liu, I believe his first name was.
Wenjen Liu and Rafael Ramos.
Ramos. One of the worst days. Yeah, one of the worst days in NYPD history. There's been others, but that was a bad day.
Yeah, and most of us will never forget it. It seems that many elected officials have, but we never will. And she's a special woman, and so is Maritza.
Wow. You know, I knew him. I worked in the unit at 300 Gold Street, and he was from the A4, so I knew him, and he would station house security for our building there. A lot of days. I bought him a lot of coffees, that guy. Well, I'm telling you, man, the idea that that could happen was part of the reason why I retired when I did.
I'm not going to get too detailed into this, but I was at the hospital, and some of these elected officials, who are all part of this now, were in that room. I'd rather not mention their names. You could just go back and find out who would be in that hospital. But part of me wanted to feel sorry for them. They had this look on their face. You know, sometimes you think you can tell what somebody's thinking. And to me, I thought they were thinking, oh my God, this is serious. This is not fun and games. You know, allowing those demos back then and fanning the flames and, you know, referring to Eric Gardner as a good man when there was a no true bill, you know, from the grand jury. And when the language should have been, this is our justice system, criminal justice. We're supposed to follow this. We live by this. Instead of saying the city mourns now. And that's the message that people got, and they vilified cops.
Well, you know, Chief, we said before how a lot of people on the other side, you know, they looked at Pantaleo wrestling with Eric Garner, and they're saying, oh, Pantaleo's a bad cop. And I've said it over and over and over again. No, Pantaleo is a great cop. He was involved in a bad situation that went bad, and he's the kind of guy that I want in my anti-crime team. I want that guy, you know. And
as Ed Mullen points out, and by the way, great job with him. I have a lot of respect for him. Not only does he speak for the sergeants in the NYPD, he speaks for the NYPD, from all of us. And you know, Daniel Pantaleo didn't wake up that morning and say, I think I'm going to go grab a guy selling stolen cigarettes today, or Lucy's, or whatever he called it.
Right.
He was sent there. He was sent there to do that.
Yeah. He was doing his job, you know.
Yeah. I mean, so those, you know, that narrative, well, he was just selling, you know, cigarettes. It was something that the store owners were complaining about, the people were, but.
You know, Chief, it's just like, I don't know if you've been watching the unrest in South Beach in Miami, and it's just out of control. And I think that good people that live there demand something gets done, you know? Yeah. And of course, it's not pretty when the police fire tear gas and all that stuff. One cop made a tackle that he could have got him signed by the Giants. It was a beautiful double arm tackle. And I was like, wow, cops still do that. It was beautiful.
You talking about the Spring Breakers?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Spring Breakers. And that's organized anarchy. It's not, you know, well, that is.
You know what happened was they didn't anticipate the amount of people. Everybody else is still kind of sort of living in this lockdown world. And Florida's wide open, and you know they're getting the vaccines, and they're like, you know what, let's go party. So I don't think they anticipated the amount of people that were going to be there, and it's scary. It's just scary to them, to the police force there, and that's why they had to take those measurements. Not that anybody's following that 8 o'clock curfew. You know what I'm saying? It looks like they're still out there, but. That just goes to show you it's a kind of sort of.
But you know something, the press will criticize the police, not the disorderly people that are out there. You know,
when I see the videos, all I see is thousands and thousands and thousands of people and a couple of cops. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
you know, Mark, you mentioned the lockdown. So I wrote this blog, my memoir of the last 364 days, and I put it out on March 12th on my website and all platforms. And because March 14th was the anniversary of me getting COVID, and I decided to just write about what I've seen. And I came up with something writing it that I didn't think of before, and it struck me a lot. The idea is that in the beginning, when we were all in pain with COVID and with the lockdown and the separation from each other, there was a unity to that. I mean, we felt more aligned with each other. We realized how much we needed each other, and it was global. It wasn't just in our country. And then the day after George Floyd died, we blew it as a civilization. We turned on each other, violence and discord and blame, and it's a shame. And it's sad. It's sad to look back and see that it's like we were able to handle stress and pressure and challenges for about 3-4 months, and then a spark went off, and we allowed it to tear us apart.
Yeah.
And the people most responsible for that are the media, the commentators, who just fed it and fed it and fed it, and just kept saying long enough that this is a systematically, inherently racist country, and the most racist people in that system are police officers. Right. And they just kept saying it, and now they're teaching it in schools.
That's incredible. I find that incredible.
Yeah,
you know, Chief Stephen Revo Gates said, "Chief, I got the Ford Explorer with a full tank. Let's go."
Steve Gates was a great cop, and so was his father.
Hey, why don't we do the commercial now, Bill? Because we got paid. They sent us some money. So here we go. Listen up, guys and gals. We are sponsored by the best hot sauce in the world. Silk City Hot Sauce is made with small batches with pure ingredients. Locally grown peppers are the foundation of every bottle of Silk City Hot Sauce. There are several flavors from mild to wild. They got crazy labels, great artwork. So go visit and listen. Let me tell you something. I'm done with my. I even finished Bill's batch. By the way, I never got a chance to give Bill his batches. I'm halfway through those. It's really a great hot sauce. So go visit silkcityhotsauce.com. There's so many different flavors. Some of OTC. Put that in for to get a 15% discount. silkcityhotsauce.com OTC. And our poor sponsor, our lone sponsor, has been getting grief. He asked me, "Do you guys get a lot of hate mail?" And I was like, "Not yet." But apparently, there's some people upset. They've been tuning into the show for some reason, spending an hour of their day to find it, because we don't have a commercial for this. You know, we do it in the middle of the show. So you got to watch the whole show to realize, oh, they have a sponsor. Why not go bother them? So talk about this is what we're up against right now.
So Silk City Hot Sauce. I'll tell you this, Vinnieogan, we mentioned him before. That when he was a kid, that young Irish boy with his red hair grew up in Spanish Harlem, and he loves spicy food. Whoever's listening to this, send it to him, because he'll probably be their biggest customer.
That's right.
Yeah, there's so many different flavors there, and I use it because I started this diet now, and it's very bland, the food, so I put a little hot sauce on there. You know what I'm saying?
Good step.
Yeah, and I've been going through it like crazy. So
you know, Chief, one thing I wanted to just say, and I appreciate this about you, and this is actually in my 27-year police career. I think this is the first time I ever met you. I may have met you, but I don't recall it, because I would have remembered. I would have remembered you, you know. And I really appreciate the fact that you're such an optimist. And sometimes it's difficult when so many things are going wrong to remain an optimist and to keep your head up high and keep marching forward. And the other guy we had on the show that reminded me of that, and I would follow him into a war, is Chief Anamone. You know, he was always. We're the NYPD, but is that pride still there? And is it, it's tougher and tougher when our detractors are supposed to be on our side,
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you have to. You have to be. We have to be. I closed out that blog and I said, we can't stay like this. This is not humanity. For us to be fighting, we are not what we see on TV, and we are not what the pundits are saying, the politicians. And if you want hope, just go say hello to a stranger and see how they smile back at you, or call the woman in Stop and Shop who's giving your credit card back by her first name and watch her smile, or say hello to the FedEx guy in the lobby, or the delivery guy in the elevator, and say, hey, listen, wherever you're bringing that food, tell them Joe Fox said make sure they give you a good tip, and just look at the smile. And that's who we are. And I have behind me, there's pictures of, you put my granddaughter up there, my grandson, Joey. I have to believe because I have to believe for them. And I do believe for them.
100%, Chief. Richella Pranzo, thank you for the $5. Joey Brooklyn, thank you for the $5. Aaron Rodriguez, you're one of our biggest benefactors. Thank you for the $24.99 super chat. You guys are so great fans to us. Peter Pranzo, Boxing MMA. I'm shouting out to all you guys. Thank you so much. Tonight we have one of the greatest guests, Chief Joe Fox, who did 37 years, maybe 39. I'm not sure. I keep forgetting. He keeps trying to slip some more years in there. But
well, the only reason why I came up with 36 was because it was in the freaking bio.
On his bio, that's right.
I didn't come up with that arbitrarily.
You know why?
You know what is? He forgot the 5 years he was a priest. Tried to put them on at the end.
No,
you know, more money on the NYPD. I was like, wait a minute.
I do my own editing. Me and my sister Irene in Virginia Beach, and everything I put out, I sent to her, and she corrects for me. But when I edited that bio when I retired, I probably left the 36 in instead of making it 37 or 38 or whatever it is. I call it 41.
You know what's really fascinating about the show that we have here is how many guests that we've had on. Everybody has an extension either while they were on the NYPD or afterwards, and they've blossomed into these. It's easy for us upon our, we go about our day to pigeonhole people. Oh, he's a cop, or he's a lawyer, or he's a doctor, and then because we're lazy, we don't want to really look into what else they're going. I was a cop. I was an actor. I was a comedian. You know what I'm saying? So all while I was a cop, and it's a lot to swallow if you're really not interested in the person. But when I'm hearing about your writing right now, I'm fascinated by it, and I want to go check out some of these blogs. Where do I go?
Joe Fox, just put in Joe Fox Life Coach, or Joe Fox Alliance. That's the website. And any of my social media platforms, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you just got to go back a few posts, and I put these blogs up, and that'll take you right to the website. But there's about 17 poems there. When I was a kid, I hated poetry, and somehow I started writing poetry in 2008.
It's funny. The reason why we're sitting here right now doing this is because of a blog that I wrote.
Really?
I'll tell you through the story. I was writing these blogs, and then one of these comedian friends of mine, he got a job with this online magazine called New York Natives. And he says, hey, would you mind if I interview you for New York Natives? So I did it with him, and it was fun. And one of the girls that worked there at New York Native, I guess she was looking me up on the internet. She thought I was cute. So she started reading my blog. And then she said to me, you know what, you're a pretty good writer. Would you want to contribute to our magazine, and write an article? So I started doing 2 articles. I started doing Back in the Day and something else. And then I said, they had money there, they were being fun. So I said, listen, I want to produce a web series. So that web series that I produced, one of my first guests on there I called Bill up. And then me and Bill, we started doing a web series for them. And that's how we got together. But
that's interesting. What year was that? What year did it start?
Hello, Bill. Hello, 7 years ago.
We started that about 5 years ago, but the podcast we've only been doing for 2 years.
I think it's more like 7 or 8 years ago.
Is it that long ago?
Because there was a break.
Chief, I think I'm older than you, so I'm losing my memory,
And the worst part was, you talk about defunded, man. We were on a roll, man. We were producing we had an editor, we had a budget, and then all of a sudden they pulled the rug out from under us. And me and Bill were like, what are we going to do now? And we just didn't know how to get back together again until we started doing this again. So this is great.
Well, thank you, 12-Step Woman, for the $4.99 chat. Thank you, Princess Mitch. And thank you, Michael Cody. You guys are so great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Chief, one of the things that I find amazing about you is that you go up to cops in the street. You visit precincts. That's incredible because, sometimes I'll walk past a cop and I can see in their face that they don't know if I'm going to say, hey, officer, how you doing? If I'm going to say, hey, fuck you, They don't know. It's in their face because they're used to the negativity. But how great it must be to have a former cop walk up to them and say, listen, I really appreciate you guys. You're doing a great job and keep it up,
You know, it's thank you, Bill. It's the way I worked as a captain, inspector, chief, and I had to learn to be a little more strategic when I became the chief of transit, because in Brooklyn South, you see cops, you see them in the street. With transit, I had to work at it. You know, I had to go out to the stations and where I may see them, and you know, they're back and forth in the trains. So I guess I became even more conscious of how important it is. And when you do something for so many years and you start hearing stories that I'll never forget. In 1999, I was on a foot post and you get out and I was all nervous and you just said, I want to say hello. The reason not everyone does that, everyone cares as much as I do, all of the bosses, but not everyone knows that this is what they appreciate. And it takes kind of it takes confidence that you have to realize that it's the right thing. And even if the cop doesn't say anything, oh, that's great.
Well, Chief, I noticed that you do pick your spots, and you do pick some pretty cops too.
That's her name is Renee, and she's the daughter of a woman who worked with me and my staff in Queens South when I was a chief there. And I was able to mentor her a little bit, give her some advice here and there, and unfortunately for us, and fortunately for her, she just went to Nassau.
Oh, good for her. Good for
yep.
her.
And she was doing really well. And that was in the visit to the 17th precinct.
Wow.
Ching ching.
What's that?
Ching ching. You know, that's when that was the overtime. Ching ching.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, that visit, it was pretty ironic because she was doing a day tour, and her mom texted me and said they have her out covering patrol because we were doing this visit at 3 p.m. and they were holding the day tour out there to cover patrol. So I had to ask the CO to get her in so I could see her. I think I waited for her. But that was the 17th precinct, the visit we did, or the 19th. It was the 19th.
I was talking about going to Nassau, like how she's gonna, she's obviously gonna be making more money right now.
Yeah, she did well.
What's that picture, Chief? The one on the screen now.
Oh, that's 7 Habits. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We always did a group shot after, and all the way in the left there is Nora Ahmed. She was one of the trainers. We had a group of 4 of us. Yeah, and that was one of the classes. I loved those classes because it began that I was going to have old Transit Bureau, supervisors come through. And the first group we had, they did the critique, and several people wrote on the critiques, the bosses should get this. So I thought, we thought, bosses, what do they mean? They mean chiefs, they mean captains, inspectors. So then we switched to all the brass in the Transit Bureau. But it evolved to a point where half of those people aren't even on the job. We have people from MTA, from customs, from if I met someone in BJ's and I started to strike up a conversation and they said, what are you doing this week? I'd say, well, I'm doing 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, self-help seminar. And they'd say, wow, that sounds great. And I'd say, you want to come? And that literally happened. There was a friend of mine named Rhonda who sold pierogies in BJ's.
Let me ask you a question, Chief. We have a fan, a follower. Her name is Sandra Gabriela Rivera, and she's going out of her way. She made these bags. They're called Bags of Love. She lives in Charlotte. She made like 200 of them up. They were all these hand sanitizer, juice, whatever you can think of to make, the brothers and sisters in blue a little bit happier, brighten up their day. And she goes out there and she gives them out herself. She's a cancer survivor. She runs every day for 9 miles. She listens to the podcast, and she just gave us a $10 super chat, by the way, which is a coincidence. I didn't plan this out at all. But it's just there's people out there that are positive energy, and they're doing stuff just like you. Just have this positive. It's got to. Hopefully, it's infectious, man. We need more of this.
Yeah, and like the one of my favorite quotes, Mahatma Gandhi, you must be the change you want to see in the world, and it's right here. It's right here. It's right here in our interactions with people. That's where we make a difference. And there are people that are just on the other side of that line, and for whatever reason they've experienced pain, they're in pain, and it humbles me every day because I know people in my life that don't have this happiness. But my birthday was February 2nd, and on the days leading up, a number of people would say, what are your plans for your birthday? What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do what I try to do every day. I'm going to be very appreciative of the happiness I've been blessed with, and I'm going to look for ways to share it with others. in big ways and small ways, however I can throughout the day. And that's my life formula now.
Chief, you're a great man. You're a great man. Look at it, Chief. I just wanted you to comment on this picture here.
Oh, that's I believe that's a cop of the year. I forget. I think that's a family member of the cop who was honored.
Alcamo, I think it was.
Oh, Millie. Yeah, that's Stephanie, her daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Joe. Oh wow, that was the.
Her dad was killed in the line of duty. Is that?
Yeah, 25 years ago in the Rockaways out here, responding to a calls for help. Some cops were fighting with, I believe, an EDP, motion to disturb person, and they were killed in a car accident. And I wound up calling her. Kathy Perez in Commissioner Bratton's office started sending out emails to all the executives a day or two before the anniversaries. So I decided to call Millie. I had her number in the email. I haven't met her before. And it was a year before that event. And I looked up and I said, Millie, I'm passing the location that it happened. It was in Rockaway. I forget, I think it was 80 or 90 something street. And I was passing the location. So it was a day where I did the gym, I did hot yoga that morning, and now I chose to have that phone call maybe 2, 3 o'clock, and I happened to be right there when it happened. So I've become very close with her. Millie, a daughter, and her husband Mark, who's a great ESU cop. Mark actually donated, I'm assuming I can say this, he donated a kidney to a fellow officer or firefighter officer in a county upstate who was down at the pile, and Mark didn't know, but he heard about this and thought, if this man was down at the pile with us, he's a brother, and he donated his kidney to him.
Amazing.
Great people. With this NYPD culture, what I tell cops in these visits is, if you would have asked them in June or July what their greatest pain point, what they're most upset of 2020, they would have said the fact that the world's turning on us. But then when the violence set in and the homicide, and Deval Gardner, that 1-year-old boy in Brooklyn, got killed, if you ask a cop today, their greatest pain point is watching the increase in shootings and homicides. And second to that is them being vilified. And that's the kind of people they are. That's the kind of people we are. And that's really, really special. And I am so honored to be become part of that culture.
You know, Chief, I've been out 9 years, and when I see what's happening now, I almost take it personally, because I was part of that whole Comstat thing, broken windows policing, where we took dropping crime very, very seriously. And we're like, the poor people that are in these top positions when it goes the other way, but it's not their fault. It's the politicians' fault. They've taken away the tools we need to fight crime. Anti-crime. How do you get rid of anti-crime? How do you do that?
Yeah. When that boy Deval Gardner was killed in 2020, he was in his carriage and hit by a bullet intended for someone else. Everyone who saw that in the newspaper or wherever they read it was sad. They said prayers, but that day and that page in that newspaper turned. But for the cops who were there, that'll never turn. And for us, just knowing that, we think of him. We think of these victims. When we see an increase in 40% or 35% in homicides, and not only in New York City, throughout the country, that hurts us, because crime victims and crime reduction and safety, it's our life. It's our life.
Yeah. But Chief, there's also some heroes out there like Pat Russo, PBA boxing team.
Yeah.
These guys that are doing things for kids, and that's the way we're going to get a hold of the public, is through the youth. Some of these great cops that do stuff for youth, and they realize that cops are real people and good people, and that's how we're going to connect with them.
And when we say youth, we got to remember the young kids. The first grade, second grade, the third grade. It's real important.
Hey, you mentioned the hot yoga, which I found interesting. I tried to do that once, and it didn't work out. They scared me right away. They said, "Oh, you have to make sure you're hydrated, because it gets up to 110 degrees in here, and and I'm like, I drink every night. I'm a comedian. I'm not gonna be hydrated. I don't want to. I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. I don't want anybody having to move my body around to get me out of the studio because I passed out. But you know what I've been doing, and I'm curious to know: have you ever tried this? I've been doing. I'm on the 30-day the cold shower challenge, the Wim Hof. Today was my I think 18th day. I'm up to like 7 minutes now.
And a cold shower?
Yeah.
What does that do
All
for you?
your breathing techniques.
Yeah,
Really?
no, my son's been doing that for years. It's got a guy named Wim Hof. They teach you how to go through
great.
freezing cold water. I don't know what it does for you, but they
Well,
do
it wakes up your immune system. Your body's firing on all cylinders because it's got that shock, but also mentally. It's been 18 days straight, and there hasn't been one day where I actually said, you know what, I feel like doing this every day. I'm always never in the mood for it, and I'm always crying, and then I always feel like so much better after I did it.
That's great. I'm going to research that.
Yeah, you should check it out. You would love it. I'm telling you. You seem like that type of
You
person.
could just jump right into the ocean. You live
I'm
in Far Rockaway,
I'm going to send you the link, the Wim Hof thing, because there's a breathing technique to it. And once you get really good at not that I'm really good at it, but I'm getting better at it. The breathing technique, then the water doesn't even bother you anymore.
My big challenge now that I'm loving is my Peloton bike, which is right over by the window when I ride, I'm looking down at the boardwalk and the beach, and I brag about living on this beach 9 months out of the year, and I cry the other 3 because I'm 60.
Where are you, Long Beach?
Rockaway.
Oh,
Rockaway.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right.
Every window in this place, I'm looking at ocean.
Chief, was this your hook, your rabbi?
Rabbi Cass.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say hook, but a really, really dear friend.
He's 84 years old right now, right?
Yeah, and he's got over 50 years as a chaplain, and I'll tell you, he's I chat with him, frequently, and he, we just love each other, and he says the kindest things to me, the most encouraging. I always remind him, it's, Rabbi, you're going to speak at my funeral, but you're going to have to be patient because it's not going to be for about 50 years.
Hey, I got to tell you, man, in all honesty, whenever I see the stars, the fact that they're on the collar and then on the shirt the same way, it always strikes me as a little too much until I saw a picture of you, and I'm like, it fits them perfectly. I don't know why, but the stars, they look bigger on you, and they're separated perfectly. They're not all bunched up. You know what I'm talking about? Like there's something, which brings up this question, because I got to ask you, did you have your uniform taken in a little bit at the waist since you were in good shape?
No, actually, Ari Hamando's park uniform on 3rd Avenue in Sunset Park, I've become dear friends with them, and he really cares about how I look. He's a tailor.
I can tell.
So I would get that summer blouse, and thank you, because you mentioned looking in the uniform before. That summer blouse, I would get upgraded like every 2 years. I'd get a new one. The hat every 2 years. The shirts every year. The patent leather shoes 6 months to the day, and I timed it so that I would get the shoes on day 1 of the rookie orientation, and I would talk about taking care, paying attention to how you look, and I tell them, look what's in my calendar as I closed up day 1. I say, new patent leather shoes. These are 6 months old. I used to do it every year, but when I did it every year, the new ones looked slightly better than the old ones, which means the old ones were unacceptable. But then I get the shoes, come in the next day, open up, stand up on the stage, and say, notice anything different about me, everyone? And they'd all point and say, new shoes. And that gave me something special with these cops, because I've been doing this for years. And then, they have 6 years on it. They see me, they say, Chief, those new shoes? Because they know I get them every 6 months. But the message for that was, take care of how we look. Because it reflects who we are. And
professionalism. Chief, they'd never find a petrified French fry in your duty jacket, right?
No. I still have a lint remover that it was a whole routine. Every time I get in and out of the car, I take the summer blouse, put it hang it in there. First, do myself with the lint remover, because you're always hugging people. Do the hat. I came home at night. I wiped down those shoes, the tie. You ever see that the tie? Sometimes you'll see it's like turns white because the oils from their neck.
Yeah.
The tie would go in the sink. I'd wash that top part of it. I mean, it was a whole routine. I loved the uniform because it represented something. And you'll notice, like in the last few years, you cannot find a picture of me carrying anything, because I felt you would never see me carrying a folder. And the drivers, the team, were wonderful to me. And if somebody handed me something and say, Chief, here's an article that I wanted you to see, I'd say, thank you. And I take it, and they would just appear and snatch it from me. Because to me, that uniform was something whole. And I didn't want it to be distracted by carrying a folder or a book or something.
That's amazing that you thought of that.
Yeah, really? There's a lot. So it means a lot that you say how well the uniform looks, because
it's like hiding behind the mic stand on stage. You know,
Really?
sometimes they carry stuff. People who are not as you can't. They're new to the spotlight, or they're never going to get it. But they have to hide behind something.
Really?
And like you said, they'll come in with something under their arm.
Wow.
It's a psychological thing. It's like you said, it's a distraction. And you were smart enough to know. I want you to see this.
You got to see the whole package.
That's beautiful. It's brilliant.
Thanks, Mom. So that's little Paulie Cacavalli.
I knew that was one of her. She's got 2 boys and 2 girls, right?
The fried eggs in the hat. The scrambled eggs. The scrambled eggs on the hat. Yeah.
Well, Chief, one good thing is you really don't have to worry about your haircuts. You know?
Oh no! I comb my hair with a towel.
You know, we're up to an hour and 10 minutes. I think we better. I know the Chief has to order dinner. And,
spaghetti and butter.
We're sorry.
He's gonna have spaghetti and butter tonight. The real bachelor's meal, right?
Yeah.
Chief, you were a fantastic guest.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. And just promise us you'll come back. We'd love to have you come back. You know,
I say yes to everything until there's a reason to say no. Strangers call me and say they want to interview me for the book they're writing. I say yes. I know you, the both of you. I know your viewers, and we're friends now. So anytime you'd like.
Thank you, Chief.
Check out those vlogs, man. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
We just have to do a little tiny bit of promotion. If you guys like this show, you can apply to us on Patreon, www.patreon.com. And we have 3 tiers for $7 a month. You're the bucket. For $9 a month, you can get to polish my rack. And for $11 a month, you can dip them in butter. You know, and that's the top tier. And we give you content that no one else gets. What else do we got, Mark? Anything else? Is that? Oh no! Please subscribe on YouTube if you like our show. Just hit that subscribe button. We've just gotten over 3,100 thanks to Duty Ron is helping us build our audience, and hopefully one day we'll have 100,000 people watching us across the nation. That would be great.
And for those of you who are in the tri-state area, save the date, April 25th. It's a Sunday. Sunday, April 25th. I'm recording a comedy album at the New York Comedy Club on 4th Street. The show times are going to be 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. 7 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. But I'm going to be posting up flyers about it and talking about it more. But I'd love to have you. We're going to have a coupon code for all the people that are follow us here, so you get a discounted rate. That's coming up. But just save the date if you're in the neighborhood.
And Chief, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone watching Police Off the Cuff, thank you for watching. Thank you for being our fans. And thank you for contributing to us.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks,
Good night
Mark.
now.